Hi everyone, welcome to Infinite Being TV. Today I'm excited to introduce you all to Grace Cavanaugh, who is a channel, clairaudient, clairvoyant, medium, and an intuitive psychic. She is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, a certified past life regression therapist, and a certified guided imagery therapist. She is channel for Osairah. Osairah is a collective of 12 non-physicals who are family of light. They offer their insights, gifts, love, and wisdom to humanity for deep transformation, healing, and awareness. Yes. Hi, Grace.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming here.
That was wonderful.
Can you share a little bit about your initial journey and how this opened up for you?
Yes. So I was always on a spiritual path, I would say, starting around the age of like 19. But when I was a child, I was very highly attuned. I was aware of a lot. I had an ability to kind of see beyond what was happening around me. I also sort of saw energy very, very particularly, and I didn't know anything about that for years and years. I didn't even understand that I was seeing differently than other people. But I did see light. I saw the vibration. I almost think of it now as the electrons that are moving around in everything. But I was seeing the light frequency, the vibration of things, even plants and trees and people. And so I was sort of kind of always aware of this other energy in this other world. And I wasn't raised extremely religious or anything. And so I just kind of lived life. I didn't pigeonhole myself based upon religious beliefs or anything. I wasn't indoctrinated very heavily other than the culture that I lived in. I was always extremely, extremely sensitive, so painfully so that, finding ways to cope to live with that was probably what I learned to do at an early age. And then I would say that I became aware of having sort of like visions and also of other energy forms, and we would say that spirits or spirit energies. And for a long time I just didn't know what to do with that, and so when I became a teenager I just did my best to shut it all down so I could feel normal and a part of things. And I put my attention on being a teenager and excelling in sports or doing things like that. And it was when I became I would say about 19, I just started on this healing journey of my life. And I would say too that my mother was always on her own healing journey and her own spiritual journey. So on some energetic level, I was always aware of her doing her thing. She was never trying to make me do it. She was just doing her process. And I'm certain I just sort of absorbed a lot of that. But by the time I was 19, I was looking for how can I heal myself. I've been at this thing for a long time. When I was in 1983 or something, when I was 15, my mother, I saw the book You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, which was the first, one of those. And she, that book and all of that stuff at that time in the 80s, in the early 80s, was just the whole new thing, the whole new, new age stuff, right? And but I became aware of channeling at 15 when my mom had a channeler to our home and people came. And but really before that I didn't know about it. I didn't know you would call it channeling, but that was my first encounter with it. And it really was like, oh, that's cool. But I'm 15 and I didn't really care. And so I also was going along my life and trying to be normal, whatever that meant, right? To get a good job or to try to pursue the things I thought I wanted or loved or had an affinity to. And so that was a lot of ways that I meandered down the road, but all the while the spiritual world and my interest in things was, crystals and and I was interested in healing, really. I was interested in finding deeper levels of my own self and life.
Was there like a specific incident that triggered you to a next level?
Yeah, I would say that I had a very particular road in my 20s of healing and self-help and self-healing and groups and, you know, therapy and all that. And then when I was in my early 30s, my father was suddenly killed. And he, you know, it was the first death in my experience of living, somebody in my family. And it was so shocking to my system that I had, like, I would say an existential crisis. You know, I went into shock for a while. And I also had my perception shift. And I just was kind of, I had been already having a lot of stuff coming through. I was having a lot of visions. I was having a lot of clairvoyant kind of seeing. And this pushed it over the edge. And so then I was really having a lot, and I was kind of navigating that. And it wasn't always easy. It was definitely like, what is happening to me? Because this was, you know, 15 years ago. And so it was just not, now I'm blown away by how much this is all out there. You know, even 10 years ago, 7 years ago, this was just starting to take momentum where everybody's talking about all this stuff. It's really flooded us all, really. And so back for me then, I was really kind of blown away by what was happening to me. And I just clairvoyantly, clairaudiently, clairsentiently, I just started like maximizing all these gifts or abilities or latent, conscious parts of me. Yeah.
It's something you had to figure out yourself. You didn't have a teacher or a guide.
Yeah, I did not. I didn't even know how to look that up at the time. I mean, for me, this really happened in 2005, and I didn't even know how to get on Google and really go, you know, what's happening to me. I was Googling things that were just not the right things to Google, so I didn't find people to help me. And also, I will say this, there really wasn't as much mainstream help for this. You know, now I teach those workshops to help people, you know, access parts of themselves, or to at least trust it or get to know how to do this if that's happening for them, or if they would like to kind of open that more. But for me, I didn't find that. And so I just was stumbling for a number of years in trying to anchor this and really determine what's happening for me and how to use it within myself. The other thing that I find fascinating is that it is difficult to push someone to do something you do. My way of seeing clairvoyantly might be very different from a way that somebody else allows themselves to see clairvoyantly. So I could give pointers, or someone could give me pointers, but inherently the process is for you to discover yourself.
Did you go through a phase where you were skeptical about the whole thing, and
yeah, of course.
how did you get?
I'm still skeptical. I'm still skeptical because when I say that, I have learned to trust what I know so implicitly. I trust myself with this process, and I trust the guides that I see and know and have come to understand. But then I also am very skeptical outside of myself, because there's a lot of, what would we say, imposters, or like, you know, fake, you know, parts. People are pulling in a lot of information, that's true, and I do think there's a lot of places for all things. I don't think we're limited here, so I think there's something for everybody. But the ring of truth is the ring of truth, and however that vibrates to you might not vibrate to me the same. So someone, you know, I'm skeptical. I was skeptical of myself, and I doubted myself, and I had so much resistance. I mean, that's the major hurdle for people who are authentic. The authentic road is, you're like, oh my God, I can't, how am I, what is this, how do I don't believe it, how will I know, give me some proof, I must be a fraud, right?
Was there any particular proof you remember that that triggered you to gain that trust, or incident that gave you that trust that this is
for real?
Yeah.
I don't know that there was things that manifested. I do know some of those things, but in some ways, those things are really difficult for people to understand or hear if it's not your own personal experience. So I can tell the stories of various things that solidified the truth for me. Many things, like clairvoyantly hearing things that I'm like, clairaudiently hearing things, and clairvoyantly seeing things, telepathically getting messages that come in, and then those are actually verified, and they do get verified. I can't pull any particulars in right now, but they get confirmed, and that was the proof for me. The other thing is that people talk a lot about awakening these days, and it was about 2006 or 7, and I was realizing that I would think they're doing the thing in authenticity too. I don't really know about any other person's experience except for my own, right?
Right.
So we can talk to each other and compare notes and say, oh, this is what did it for me, and this is what did it for me. But I mean, I literally started seeing people's past people. I could see a spirit energy standing behind or beside someone or up in a window, and I didn't like that, honestly.
And it was visual?
Visual for me at those times. And that was early on. And what I'm saying about that part in early years, I would say I went through about 4 to 5 years of intense psychic phenomena that was all things, or lots of things. I could see clairvoyantly in the world, but I knew I was not having a hallucination.
Right.
I could register energy in the form of like vibration. It was like, it's like where the energy shifts and you just see a different vibration of the energy, and there's something there. And I would go, what's that? Or clairaudiently, I've literally been woken in 2, 3 in the morning by a sound that I woke up and I got out of my bed and I went listening for where the music was. And there was no music in my house playing. There was no CD on, and it was not coming from outside. And then when I realized, when I registered that it wasn't in the house, then my conscious mind registered that it was a song and a sound of music that I had never heard, and it made me want to weep. It was so celestial. And I feel so honored and so blessed, truly, truly, to have gotten a minute to hear that. And so that was not in my head, and that was not outside in this world of phenomena. It was in this other realm of existence that opened to me through clairaudience. And so my clairaudience was really strong, my clairvoyance was really strong, and my clairsentience. And I would feel things so deeply. I'd walk past people and I would be like immediately in grief, or I would just be very affected. Feeling, seeing, and sensing were feeling, seeing, hearing, and sensing were all the ways that really affected me. And they were not easy to navigate because I didn't have a guide or a teacher. I understood the words, but if I looked up clairaudience and clairvoyance and all of that, and I didn't know they were my clairs, as people talk about them now. I did actually really come to a place where I had to decide if I felt that I was going crazy or if I was having this. And the truth was I knew I wasn't going crazy. I knew this had always been there and it was building. And then that event with my father and grief and death and life and death and what's it all for and everything just made it all kind of converge at one time and open that door for me to really dive into these places within myself. It was never a journey about becoming something,
And you went through that hump of feeling overwhelmed to feeling empowered, that you have clarity.
Sometimes, yeah. It wasn't just like a big event, though. It wasn't like I'm in a bad place and now I'm in a good place. It was a continual road of like that, just always kind of finding like, oh, I think I've got a handle on it. Oh my God, I don't know anything. Oh my God, maybe this is okay. No, I don't think this is okay. Oh my God, what did I say? What did I do? Oh my God, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? I mean, all of those things, the ego, the realizing that I was balancing really trying to learn how to balance and navigate two worlds. This world of the third dimension that I was programmed into, really. And then how to unprogram myself, and what did that mean, and who was I if I did, and all of that was a part of it as well. Because the other part of that is you have to have a kind of a strong constitution to navigate these worlds. You have to know yourself to a certain degree, really feel that egoic strength of there's a fortitude within me that I know where I've been, I know who I am, I know where I'm going, and that's a part of the foundation within me, because I've been through a lot, right? But there was also a break-off point where my ego felt like it was going to fall away and I was going to like go, I didn't even know where. And for me, pulling that back in helped me navigate both sides. It helped me be a better navigator in those realms that we don't know how to talk about, or we just think is like, what, made up or whatever, and balance it into this world. You know?
It takes a lot of deep trust within yourself to be able to do both of them.
It really does. I mean, will say, and I say this a lot of times, I didn't believe in dark energies, or I really didn't. Even in the world, I didn't understand it, but I didn't think things were evil, although I would see, quote, evil things, right? People doing evil things. And my experience with that side of life is that there's all things in the realm of existence. So we have to look at our shadow and our light to understand all things, really. And even then, we're just trying to balance them, really. And I took on a couple of years where it was really like, oh, you didn't really believe in or think about or know much about this side of existence. So we're going to show you. And I really got kind of schooled in that. I got schooled in the lessons of that there's a lot of energy that is what we call dark. That doesn't make it bad or wrong, well, we judge it. I've had to look it in the eye, is basically what I'm saying.
For people who struggle with polarity about what's getting stuck in this is right and this is wrong, how do you explain that it is not that polarizing?
Well, it's an interesting thing because I'm definitely not an expert on that, because for me personally in my own life, I still go through those kinds of swings at times, right? Like I can look at the world and think, oh, that's right or wrong. You know, we have judgment in the world, and so we are in that experience. And I personally, my experience is that the more neutral of a stance that I can take, the freer I feel. That's something I've really learned from Osairah, is their neutrality. They just stand in a place of neutralness, and it's so phenomenal. They don't judge us. They don't have the way about that we do. And so it is still that we're working that out. The more that one works on themselves, the more that they look inside we are so emotionally charged by things. The more that we step away from the emotions with feeling still, but acknowledge things as they are, I think it shifts us subtly. I don't know that way personally, because I don't really claim to be an expert of really anything. I'm still human, doing my path, living my life, you know, going through what feels like empowerment. Oh, not so much empowerment. Empowerment, not so much. Or like, I feel like I know what I'm doing. Oh my gosh, I don't know anything about what I'm doing. You know, I think we all kind of vacillate, and we're all kind of finding our way through that, you know.
With Osairah, does their energy, is it more like neutral, high energy?
Definitely.
How do they stay neutral when in our realm it's like completely?
They just have a way to do that. I mean, in the conversations that you can have and other people have with them, they don't have the charge. They have a different perspective. They're at a I call it a higher level. Maybe they don't call it a higher level, but they're having a broader, that's a good way to say it. They're having a much broader view of a wider angle of all these things that we go through that we're so like this with. We're like, oh my God, it's so bad. And they're like, oh, we see it all. And that is something that through my work with them, my commitment with them, and my agreements with them, and my essentially absorption over time of some of this with them, I get it. But I still slip into my own places where I need to grow, where I get that little, tiny view at times. Yeah.
Their view is a lot more expanded. They are able to see a lot more bigger.
Yeah, a lot wider. Otherwise I don't think that what they offer would be received so well by people, because they're bringing something that we really are wanting to attain. We're wanting to reach that kind of level. We really want to hear this stuff that they're sharing and offering so that we can take it in and become more of it. We kind of have an innate desire for it. And so that's why they've come.
When was the first time they met you or you got introduced to them?
I was starting to meditate on a regular basis because of all of these phenomena, things that were happening, the psychic stuff, the seeing, the feeling, the hearing, the being waken up by guides all night long, every night. Some of them I would see, some of them I wouldn't. It was so much to take that I was like, I have to calm my energy down. I have to, get silent for a while. And so I started to meditate, and it was within the meditation that really started to expand things around me. And then I could feel a presence for quite a while around me, and I could feel how they kept kind of nudging me. And the nudging went on for at least a couple months before I was willing to kind of open my mouth. But also, their presence was always there. And when I started to channel, I literally thought to myself, well, this is just dumb. I mean, I would be in meditation, I'd be meditating, I'd be quieting, I'd be becoming aware of the field of energy. I could feel some presence. They would sort of push on me. I would feel like, it almost felt like a physical push on my shoulder here. And I would be like, well, I'd turn around and I'd look and there'd be nothing in the room. And then I'd be like, what? What do you want? And then I would get these telepathic awareness conversations where they'd be like, we want to speak. We want to come through you. And I'd be like, that's just, in my mind, I'm like, that is just ridiculous. I don't know how to do that. And I remember sitting there one time and I was frustrated with this whole thing, but I knew there was something valid in it. And I remember going, well, what am I supposed to do? Just open my mouth? And I'm being like a brat. I was just like, and I can't. How do you channel? How does this come through? And so the telepathic voice was like, we will show you and we will guide you. And so that's how it kind of began. And then it did come through, and it was very choppy and very broken up, and it didn't sound like me, and it didn't sound like my cadence, and I was very uncomfortable with it, and I was worried for sure about what other people would think, and that was part of it. I was just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't want scrutiny, I don't want judgment, I don't want people looking at me and thinking weird things, and that's for real. We get in the inhibition within me was just like, ah. And then also I learned later that it had to do too with past lives and persecution, because I had already been this. I already have been an oracle and a channeler, or a mystic or a high priestess, the messenger. I have been many times in what we consider past lives, and so that thread of consciousness was still within me and terrified me, because I, like many of us, we probably met our death because we were the messenger. And so there's a part of me that was absolutely like, no way. And I had to work for a good year with some people to help me anchor this through myself and to move through all my own shit, to really move through my own fears and my ego and my judgments and my and literally to open up my voice, to be able to let them it does sound so different today than it did actually pretty much 10 years ago. So yeah, it's been a journey.
It took you about an year to get smooth into that
It was
process?
sort of smooth, yeah. It took me a year to get through what I felt like was just this emotional blockage constantly. I would start to channel these couple of people really who I love so much, graciously offered to sit with me. And I mean, we didn't know, it wasn't like, okay, do this and then in 10 years you'll be interviewing for YouTube. I didn't know that. I was just doing that. I was following a natural, organic process that was here in my life. It wasn't to go, to be, to get, to do. It was because there was no way for me not to. This was bothering me. This was in my world. This was coming to me. Could I have totally shut it all off? It's possible. But there was also, underneath all of that was, this is what you've always come for. You know that this is a part of your reasons for being, that you came to be this, whatever was happening. So I just was blindly kind of following along the course of that expansion. And I will say that in that process with those two people, a lot of times, a lot of days, a lot of the opportunity with them was for me to fall apart. I literally, I couldn't stand how I looked, so my ego would get in there. And the message would be being delivered, and I would become extremely aware of my facial contortions and how my mouth was sounding, or how what they were saying, what was the impact of what they were saying, the information. And I would get in there and I would just go, no, and I would just kind of come back and start crying and just be so, no, like throwing a fit, because it was so overwhelming and I didn't personally want to be responsible. On some level, there was a part of me that just is like, oh my God, if I do this, I'm responsible for everything in the whole world, That's how I kind of was like, But over time, I learned to trust them. I learned to feel myself expand in ways that I could have not known about if I didn't do that road. It gave me a lot of respect for the willingness to walk through the scary and dark places in ourselves. It gave me a lot of respect for myself in that way. And it gave me a lot of respect when I see and know and feel that others do that work too.
It enriches your personality.
Mm-hmm. And it's why we come, a huge portion of why we come, to wake ourselves up, to do whatever it takes, that the hard stuff that is hard, cracks us open so that we can reveal the truth and the light within ourselves.
What does their energy feel like? How would you describe Osairah's energy if you had to describe in words?
Oh, loving and funny and kind and angelic and good and pure, and they feel like great assistors, like that's the word, assistors. They feel like assistors. They're trying to assist us, and they love us, and they want to share this awareness that they can give.
Do they have a physical body or no?
No, they have a light beingness, and that's all I can say about that. I've seen golden light that I believe is them, absolutely, and they're kind of tall energies, very tall, brilliant, golden, white light. And they don't take a physical form the way we would see them, or the way that we are and we would want to see them as people, but they have sort of an outline. I don't really know how to describe it, because I think it actually creates limitation when we try to think of them as human, or having a form.
I know you do past life regression. Could you explain what are the benefits of past life regression?
So past life regression, I feel, is really beneficial. There's so many books on it, and so many people do good work. I think that past life regression benefits are that you can have a different perspective on yourself because of the threads of the lives you have lived, and you can have a better understanding with those threads to what you're doing now and who you are now, and what your lessons are maybe, or what you're overcoming. I feel that there's not a lot of need to go in and get all drowning in it. It's just sort of accessing pieces of information that can help you now.
And what is guided imagery? I know you also do guided imagery therapy. For people who are new, how would you explain what is guided imagery?
Well, also, guided imagery is what I sort of weave into the past life regression or hypnotherapy when I'm doing hypnotherapy or past life regression. I would have to say that I don't do as much of that any longer as I used to, compared to doing the channeling work. It's channeling that is really my gift, and that ability that doesn't make me any more special or more important, for sure, because I'm, like I said, I'm a mother, I'm a woman, I'm just living life. I want to just live life. You know, sometimes being that channel can feel like, oh my God, it's kind of a lot. It's kind of sometimes I've actually felt like it's a burden, and it's, oh my God, I don't really want to do this, and it's too big, too much responsibility. I get over that after a while, whatever that is for me, and I look at it as it is a blessing and it is a gift, and I'm just the conduit. But that has taken over in my life far more than hypnotherapy and the channeling, and the past life regression. And the guided imagery. Yeah, guided imagery is very much being able to lead someone, sort of like in a meditation, you being able to recall things and see things in your own mind's eye, and I take you on a journey, and it's kind of a very similar connection to bringing in archetypes and all these other things that help weave a story, that helps you reframe things within your own psychological, awareness, and also with the subconscious, which has to do with past life in hypnotherapy.
Is it for things that have already happened, or is it more for things to create new?
With guided imagery, it can be used in either context. If you're trying to repattern something from the past that you want to like unhook, you can use it like that as a meditation as well, or as hypnotherapy or guided anything. Or you can create new pathways with new visions of yourself in that way with guided imagery. So yeah, I think we all use it, especially for visuals, people. But most of us use some version of our own guided imagery in life,
And for someone who is new on this journey, how can they tell the difference between their higher self voice or the ego? Sometimes they both sound the same.
Close, right? Those are good questions too. My experience with that, and like I said, even though I teach a lot and I offer a lot of my experience, I don't know that I have the market on all this. My experience is my experience, and I think, like I said before, that the ring of truth is, you're lying to yourself if you know you're lying to yourself, but how can we undo that, right? How do we get clear? I think the higher self is the one who really goes for light and goes for love and goes for the best, right? The very, very best. But we do have influences of energies, and we are still reconciling a lot of things within ourselves. So hearing these voices, that's what's very different to talk about than the inner voice versus the clairaudient or clairvoyant seeing, clairaudient hearing. That's very different. If you hear something that is definitely not any of your inner voice conversation, that's clairaudience. And allowing yourself to hear aspects of your higher self is a voice that, is sort of that place where they talk a lot about is the still small voice. It's the still small voice that rings the truth. We all delude ourselves at one time or another about this is my highest truth. I know it is.
Yeah,
And then you walk that road and you go down that road and you learn a few lessons about, oh, maybe that wasn't exactly my highest truth. Maybe I just really wanted that.
Yeah.
And I, spun a voice that really supported that so I could do it. Now, there's no shame in that. This is what we're here to do. We learn, we play, we do this. We play the game on ourselves as much as we play the game on each other and with each other. So what my understanding too with Osairah is there's no wrongness in that, they would say. There's nothing wrong with that. We are learning, we are growing, we are stumbling, and we're picking ourselves back up. Yeah.
And with your experience with Osairah, do they help you describe what are the different types of levels of realms?
Do they describe the different levels of realms? They do, to a certain extent. They talk about them in various different ways. They sort of, some of that I can't remember because I don't remember everything. I definitely don't remember everything, but they talk about, but from the years, and I also don't watch my own videos or my own, listen back to the audios, but from what I understand, certain levels of, we term them levels, right? We say dimensions of level 1 or dimension 5, right? We have to label them. I don't know for sure if that's how it is seen in all of creation. Like I just know that energetically it feels like there are levels, right, of dimensions. And they say certain ones, like the third dimension is what it is, what we experience here. Fifth dimension is kind of where or fifth level is kind of where we have risen above some of this egoic thing that we do here that's painful. You just come into the higher states of consciousness. You just realize the larger presence of I am versus the small self that is always in fear. And so when we rise out, we come to these next levels. There's a lot of different ways people talk about this stuff. So I don't feel that I have a corner on that either at all about how this is that. People want that from people, but I mean, I think Osairah would have to answer that question too.
And for people who are still very new, and I know sometimes there are some spiritual healers who have been around for a long time, but they are not necessarily evolved in a personal life. How do you tell a difference between a real spiritual teacher and someone who is misleading?
Well, I don't know that everybody is misleading even if they don't have it wired in their personal life. I think that walking your talk to the best of your ability is what we all are doing. I think if we would call them spiritual leaders, like, I don't know about those people. I haven't interviewed them or been with them. I can read books too, which I rarely do, but I mean, I can only go off what feels like an intuitive truth for me with someone, right? Like, so I don't know what another person, we do see things that go on in the world, but that's the truth. That's what I'm always saying too about myself. I'm still growing and learning. And I don't know if there's many people, I mean, I do know that there's a lot of people who are kind of waking up and they're still learning to balance that in themselves, right? And so if you say to yourself, I'm only the light, you're going to see plenty of shadow so that you can learn to balance that. If you say, I'm only the shadow, there's going to be things that pull in that are the light good for you too. And so when your question about other people, and I don't know, I can't say, but when you feel a pull towards somebody else as a teacher or a spiritual person that you want to listen to or something, maybe it's just the message. Maybe also, I don't know, maybe also their personal life is not your business. I don't know. Like, is it my business what somebody else's personal life is? Only if it affects me is how I feel. If that person wants to be wallowing in their own unhappiness and self-hate and whatever, but they bring a phenomenal message, and the phenomenal message is wonderful, and I get to receive that wonderful message, I'm very, very grateful.
It doesn't have to be wired in their life to be a good messenger.
I guess not. I don't know for sure. I mean, is it, I think that in my assessment is, I'm not the judge. I don't get to judge if that's right or wrong, even. If that person is a bad person in their personal life, and that's a judgment, calling them bad is where the problem begins. Because one thing that Osairah says, and a number of other beings that I channel say, and it is primary, the lesson that I try to live and learn, is that I cannot know, they say this all the time to people, that I cannot know, you cannot know another person's journey as a soul. I don't know if that teacher, we could include me in that, is perfect in every way. Well, I can tell you I'm not perfect, and I don't have to be perfect to do the work, to bring the message, because my soul agreement is do the best I can, learn and wake up, grow, and what we call ascend, whatever that means. Live a life that is good and true. That's what I'm trying to do. And sometimes that makes me have to look at my shadow. And sometimes that makes me have to look at my pain so I can burst through that pain and move on. And so when I look to anyone else, and if I'm going to be in judgment of them, then I'm definitely looking at myself to be in judgment of me. Because I can never, ever know what that soul is going to get from being in the shadow. Just like you can never, ever, ever know what it is that my pain, my personal pain. We can never really know someone else's pain. And the bigger piece of that is we can never know why they have it. There is something inherently happening for the soul. That's the soul agreement. And that's something that I try to look at a lot.
Can you share a little bit about automatic writing? I know you teach that in your
thing. So yes, I can share a little bit about that. It's not a big, for me, it wasn't a huge tool. I offer it as a conversation when I work with people. I say, well, there is this. I didn't do great with it, but I did do what we would call like intuitive automatic writing, which would be, for me, I would say a blessing and a prayer, and I would just say I open myself up to write and let the pen write whatever it is that is I need to see, read, and hear. And then I would just kind of relax and let that come. And it was usually a beautiful, wonderful, light-filled message of goodness and hope and love and light for me. It was, some people find automatic writing to be super easy. Some people cannot do it at all. And some people use it as a way to access their subconscious connections and allows them to open up to the field. And then sometimes that can shift into automatic writing, which would be considered channeling. I think there's a difference too, though, when people do automatic writing and start to do it as a channeling, but it really is coming from their higher self. So that we all have a wisdom part in us. Most of us have lived many times, and we carry these codes of wisdom. You know, especially over time with life, we learn, we live, we learn, we live. And so we have this part of us that is that higher self that is inherently wise and has kind of has our back and is of a higher dimension and higher light. That is oftentimes what is coming through. And I did that for a long time just for my personal life. It would help me. It was like a tool for me to live and get through my things.
So there are all these different types of tools like automatic writing, past life regression to access that subconscious.
Yeah.
Which one, for you personally, which one does resonate the best for you to connect at that level?
Well, it was different things at different times. In my 20s, I used to write and journal a lot. I used to pray and just do meditations through walking. I wasn't a sitting meditator in my 20s, but in my later 30s, I was a sitting meditator. When I came to hypnotherapy, that was a huge access point for me because hypnosis brings you down into different states in the brain waves, and you do access the subconscious mind. And I just had so much visual stuff because I'm a clairvoyant person. I see visions. There's something in here within me that accesses and is a seer. And so hypnotherapy helped bypass my critical thinking mind that would always get in the way of that and just open that door really wide. So that was one of those tools that really was helpful for me. It may not be helpful for somebody else. So I do think that there's lots of different tools along the way, but not every one is going to work for everyone.
And is seeing auras, is it not for everyone? How if someone is interested, how can they practice seeing auras?
Well, I would say that there's different ways you can practice. I did practice. I would just look at someone and I would just relax my eyes and my gaze, and I would just see the energy around. And you can, over time, if you practice enough, you can see, well, I can't say everybody can because not everybody's pineal is the same, but there's potential for many, many, many people to be able to soften the gaze and see the energetics around people. I often say that nature helps that too, because when we go into nature is not hiding anything. Nature is alive and a part of the existence of this realm of the third dimensional world we call Earth. It is vibrating. It literally vibrates a frequency, just like you do, just like my heart space, just like our heart space does. So if you...
Can you explain the importance or role of nature in raising your vibration?
It's an excellent question. Nature, because everything is the world, life, Earth is vibrating. It has a frequency. And in nature, when we go out of the city and we actually absorb ourselves back into the natural world, we connect more to our inherent, life force energy too. For many years, Osairah would talk about, if you want to know the frequency of love and light, go sit with a tree. And they would just talk about the wisdom keepers that trees are. And we have discounted that. We've gotten so far away from that. And I do think that people, in a very large majority of people, especially indigenous people who are still holding that frequency, believe that we have gotten so far from it and are trying to get themselves back there, even in spite of all of this technology that we have. The ones of us who will be willing to go into nature and sit with the trees and walk and talk with nature will be rewarded by that. It opens up a field of consciousness around you if you really get yourself into nature. I grew up half my life in the Southern California area on the beach in the 70s, and then on the Oregon coast. And on the Oregon coast, you just have tall, green, evergreen trees that are just vibrating. I used to spend so much time in the forest when I was a girl and a teenager and a young woman, and then even when I moved back there with my family and my daughters, and I would spend time with the trees, and I know that I was accessing their wisdom. I was connecting. I loved them. I could feel things. Did I hear them talking to me? Only many, many, many years later. But at the time that I was accessing that, I could feel the vibrations lift me. I could feel that. And a lot of people say that too, is like when we go into nature, it's like you can see the colors more brightly. Like, wait. But when you're trapped in the world and you just don't step out of the systems that we've got in place in the world, we get lost to those higher vibrations, and it takes more effort to connect to what is really all around us. So step into nature.
It's like your senses intensify.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's like if anybody's ever been to, certain places in the world, they do resonate higher. They have a vibration. Hawaii is Hawaii was a very particular island that just woke me up really, really, really strongly. And I did see this Garden of Eden. I saw this beautiful, beautiful energy all around, and it wasn't just this world's energy. It was another frequency that was vibrating there. And it was me who was I was opening, so I was shifted. So we all have a possibility of being shifted, you know, and sometimes it strikes us at certain times of our own life walk, and other times we just, you know, take ourselves willingly to try to expand it. There's all kinds of ways we come to, or can come to, expanding our own consciousness, and I think nature's a huge, good way.
Do you think this is a good time to bring in Osairah?
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
I'm excited.
Okay. So, how will that go? How I work with that, and people ask me, how did you get so, you know, how does that happen, or how do you do that? And a lot of start and stops and trial and error and not being comfortable. And now it's pretty comfortable. I can just take a few breaths and call them kind of in. It's not a calling. You're like, hey, come on over. It's a connection. It's like they're always there. And and for those people who may not know about Osairah, in my how I try to describe them is they are a collective of 12, but they are part of a larger family of light. And so that family of light is called Osairah. So that's sort of their overall name, you know, like they're under the house of Osairah. But 12 will come any given time based upon whatever's happening. So for this conversation, or if I'm in a group with people, or one-on-one, when I work with one-on-one people. So whatever is needing to come through with that experience with me, is those 12 will come. And so we'll just see how that goes today. Okay? Do you feel like you have questions for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so I always have to yawn. Indeed, greetings to you, dear one. We are that one known as Osairah, and we are in fact overjoyed to be in this alignment with you. We are recognizing you. We are recognizing this conversation, the way in which the energy has been moving through and between you and our beloved channel. We are recognizing the way in which this is an opportunity and an offering for many. We are excited for this opportunity. We would like to begin with anything that you would like to speak on. Indeed.
Welcome on this program. Can you explain to us how this reality is structured?
You are going for the gusto with that one right off the bat. Yes, you see. Aha. So how can we describe the way that this reality is structured? Let us see. If we can speak to you to reach as many people possible, we will expand in this frame of thought. There is this concept of how it is that you are in a third dimensional reality, and the expansion that you are all calling yourselves to is the expansion of the soul's essence. You are eternal light. You are eternal beingness. You are literally eternal love. You are literally the creation of existence. And so within that experience, you have pulled yourself into the reality, and here on this earthly experience you call third dimensional life, you are having what we would say is many, many, many multi-dimensional experiences within a third dimension. There is such a, how should we say that? Indeed, thickness to the field of the third dimension. You are all in a, what we would say, and many have said, and many do say, the idea of a third dimensional school of experience, which is offering you the ability for your own expansion, to elevate you to consciousnesses, to have you go through things that make you expand in the awarenesses of realities. So for us to try to say to you, we know how to experience, or tell you how to, that you can experience the declaration of how realities are structured, that is, how should we say, a little more challenging than we are willing to go to today. What we also want to say is the question itself is challenging. Can you repeat the question?
how the reality is structured, what are the different dimensions in our reality.
So the word reality keeps, that is with, when you began the question, the difficulty is that reality is a word that is, how shall we say that? It is, has many meanings for many people. It is not the same word for everyone. What we would say about how realities are structured is that you are all human experiencings, having this reality experience. You believe is one, but really there is almost 8 billion of you having different realities bumping up against each other in this experience called third dimension, and you are trying to make sense of almost 8 billion different realities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so when you talk to us about that idea of it's structured, what we think you are meaning, what you are kind of trying to get at is here you are in the third dimensional reality, and then there are those who talk about the fourth dimension.
Yes.
Then there are those who are talking about the fifth dimension, and on and on and on. And we do talk about that in a very kind of, what we will say is generalized way that helps people understand that there is, quote, levels of experience, of expansion, of the presence of that which you are eternally, which is really source energy. You are the eternalness of being. And in these different dimensional realities of experience, you grow. When we talk about, and we do, the seventh dimension, one of the aspects that we talk about very often is the seventh dimensional frequency of energy and beings who participate in seventh dimensional energy, which happens to be many of us, is that there are guides and guardians that are like we are, having a higher dimensional frequency of understanding, and we exist on that, quote, realm or plane of existence. That's how we kind of try to weave the concept to you. It is that there are, quote, kinds of levels of existence that help you grow. That's simple, yes?
Yes.
We hope we answered some of it.
You did. Thank you.
Indeed.
And do we really have free will? Because sometimes when it looks like we are the creator of our own reality, but in certain situation, it's hard to believe that you could create something like that.
We do very much with such loving compassion understand that idea that it is difficult for you at times to believe in that you are creating this reality, some say, and they have said to us directly. But Osairah, I would absolutely, in all right thinking mind, never have created this scenario. And we know that you think that from your perspective of the egoic stance of being in a body within the realm of going through that experience. But from the higher realms of your existence, from the way in which you actually are an expanded being in consciousness, you know that by offering yourself this, you as the soul essence will grow. You are and do have so much creative ability, and you are also playing small consistently, and you do not believe in that because you are trapped within the programming of so much that you cannot reach beyond it. Well, many of you are reaching beyond it now, but there is a lot of shifting that is happening that is helping you to wake up that you do have, we will say, free will, and you don't access it. We also would say that you don't realize very often that you are choosing. You are choosers. Choice. Choosing. We often have been saying for a while now, you are human choosers rather than human beings most of the time, but you are essentially offering yourself the ways to getting to being by the choosing. Do you see what we are saying there? The choosing offers you the way to find yourself to being. In the beingness, you find the different levels of your own consciousness. In the different levels of your own consciousness, you expand your reality experience and you access different realms of existence. Accessing different realms of existence helps you to understand there's far more here than the third dimensional reality of which I am seeing, experiencing, and living. And you have a bit of a separation and open yourself up to realize there is no separation. You're all one. We are going off on a bit of a tangent, we see that. And so we would say to you that the consciousness of these different dimensions of existence called, and people do call them seventh dimension, eighth dimension, ninth dimension, etc. We say are parts of a collective universe of all expansion that is continuing, and we don't just mean universe. This is a part of the expansion of all life that there is. It is ever expanding, hurtling, moving process that is life itself, to remember that it is life itself, to remember it is love itself, to remember it is light itself. We say that eternal lightness of being is what you actually are, that you are eternal love, you are the creation principle. So people are caught up in the ideas of dimensions as a pathway towards some enlightenment. And what we will tell you is, when you leave your physical body and you are off this plane and this blink of an eye experience that you think is so very long, you are opening yourself up to the remembrance of all that you are. And in that moment, you do know that you came for all that you experienced. Every moment of it was pure grace. Every moment of it was the activity of your soul. That there is no wrong thing that ever happened there, and that you didn't indeed sign up for every aspect, and you have a different perspective, point of view. You do not judge it from the place of good, bad, right, wrong. Oh my God, that was terrible. It was all an offering. And you see that from a different non-physical presence and concentration of point of view. When you are in that space, you have a wider perspective, just like we do, in the place of where you stand. And you look around and you go, oh, that's right. I forgot. I remember all of this now. That's right. I made myself very small. I forgot everything I knew about here, that I am, that is everything, this is that I am the creation principle of all existence. And I shrunk myself into that tiny little body to experience all those things, and said that I didn't know what I was doing all the time, so that I could wake myself up along the way and have these beautiful lessons of the growth of living of life. And I never got to have any better experience than that. Oh boy, I can't wait to go again.
How can we transform our reality if we don't like what we created? How can we transform that?
We love this question. This is a wonderful question. So it takes decision making, as some say, right? You have to make a decision first that you want to change it. If you are a person who wants to sit in the suffering and say, oh my, it's so terrible, I don't like this, I don't like this, and you constantly are repeating that and repeating that and repeating that and repeating that within your physical experience of whether or not you call it the mantra that you continue to repeat, you will stay in that place. It becomes a decision. Something has to be moved within you. Yes, you have to come to a choice where you make that choice. You are human choosers. So you have to come to the choice where you make the decision and you choose to create something new. And out of that becomes a sacred action, an action you would take, something you would do, a little bit of movement this way or that way. If you're in a bad situation where you live and someone is always throwing rocks in your house, you're going to take some sort of action to figure out how to make it a better situation for your living experience, whatever action that may be. And there are a plethora of opportunities of actions that you could take. All kinds. So it becomes that you are a human chooser. You could choose that you talk to every person on the block and you find the culprit, or you could move your physical space, or you could put boards up around your windows, or you could hire an infiltration of army people around you and catch the person. There's so many, and we are using a very interesting analogy about a house, but we would say to you that there are so many opportunities to change that situation in different ways you would be choosing. The same would go if you are in a situation you do not like. You don't like being at a particular job situation. We know this is a conversation we have with many of our human friends. And ultimately, we say always, we understand where you sit, where you are, what you believe, what you think, and we cannot influence you any other way. We cannot say, do this, don't do this, go here, don't go there. We always offer the opportunity of the widest possible mirror for us to say to you, what do you really want to choose? And if you are willing to step into the territory of being brave enough, and we do say brave, it requires you stepping over your fear. It requires you to shore up something that is keeping you in the place that you are calling, I don't like this, I don't want this, this is not a good situation for me. But you keep yourself there until you make the moment of decision. No one chooses anyone for anything for you ultimately. Now we know that that will actually trigger a lot of conversation, because many people feel that they are at the effects of things. But ultimately, if you dial every part of everything back down, and we know that this is quite a topic. We know, believe us, we know that this is quite a topic. That personal responsibility is at the end of all of this. And we have that to be a hot spot with people. We know people don't want to hear, our friends do not always want to hear that they are ultimately having a powerful responsibility within every single equation that is their life experience. And when what we say to our human friends is that goes back to the soul's desire of why you incarnated. So if someone says to us, well, that is just an impossibility, Osairah, because this person is in prison. This person is being held captive by someone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are all kinds of different ways you could create scenarios. And we would say, ultimately, we could dial every conversation back down to, ultimately, that the soul makes choices. You, on the human experience of the third dimensional reality, in reality experience as you are calling it, cannot know what another person has signed up for. Maybe that experience where they ended up being in, shall we say, prison, was a result of something ultimately that they wanted to experience in a great way that ultimately frees their soul in some other way that you will never, never, ever know about. So things are never what they seem to be on the surface of someone looking outside in. Does that answer the question, or some of it?
A lot of it. Thank you. Are you in touch with any of the, can you give us some information on some of the advanced beings that we are not in contact with, but they are closer to our third dimension?
Explain this again, say it again, please.
Are you in touch with any other beings in the universe that we are not in contact with?
So are you asking if there are other beings?
Yes.
Absolutely. There are many different kinds of consciousnesses that are in what you would call the universe or the spheres of existence, we would say. The ways in which these realms collide. There are many ways towards that happen here, even on your earth, that you don't recognize that are happening. There is much densities and higher dimensions that are coexisting. That's a good way to say it. And so there are beings that are even on your world that you don't recognize are necessarily beings of another kind of consciousness. That's simple, huh? Is it? And so we could say to you, yes, we are also what you would say collection of many of consciousness from different realms. We don't just come particularly from the seventh dimension, what we'd say from the seventh dimension, existing in or on or around the seventh dimension. We are guardians, guides, master assistants. It's similar to, some would call us angelic guardians and guides, and indeed we are, and are at a certain level of consciousness. And we would say we don't just exist, all of us, the consciousness of Osairah, the many of us, on the seventh dimension. There are those of us who have what you would say connections and alliance to ninth dimension. There are other dimensional frequencies that we are in league with, and you could say connected to, what you would say similar of beings in consciousness. Some get the label, and we say that is fine. We have the label called the Osairah as a particular way to identify us. Same with those who would call themselves, say, the Pleiadians would be a way to label and identify, we will say, a race of consciousness. Yes?
Do you think our human consciousness, it's raising to the level that we could be making a contact with them anytime soon?
Well, we would say to you that you are now. Ha! We would say here, even in this moment, here we are. Ha! We give a big smile for that through the beloved body of the channel, the physical experience, because we say we have been all, so many of us, making contact with you all in many different ways for, shall we say, millennia. This is not, you are not just human beings, human as you experience yourself, think yourself to be, and you are especially not on the timeline you think you're to be regarding your earth and the experience of that it's just this timeline of these years, of these hundreds of thousands of years that you can equate to your science and your earth. You are quite more than that, and there has been many types of life forms that have been on this planet and still are. So there is contact already. It is just not that you have made this some sort of what you would call on the world stage. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Mhm.
In terms of time, how many years ahead are you from us?
We cannot qualify that to time the way you think of years now. What we would tell you is that we are most definitely, what we have often said all of this time of our experience with our beloved channel in this lifetime, we would say to you that we are what you would say your future, you are our past. What we mean by that, people have asked us, well, what does that actually mean, Osairah? And we say that it is essentially, time does not exist the way you think it does. When you are in the third dimension, you have a lockdown on time. You have a particular way that you travel with the idea of time. That is not existence of reality, of the truth, of nature, of experience, of the eternalness of being. So when we say you are the future, we are your future, you are our past, it is to say that many of us how should we say that, have moved through the dimensional frequencies of existence, and we stand in a place recognizing this connection between worlds, and we access it through connecting to our beloved channel this way. Many others do in different ways, and we pull in the reflection of that which you are going towards. Does some of that help?
Can you elaborate more?
So when we say that we are your future, you are our past, it is like to say, how can we say that in a way that would work for you all? In some ways, the simplest form is we have already done what you are doing, and we are your future. It's like you stepping into your future self, only you do not have, how should we say that, good way to say it. Say you are here right now, this person called you as your name, you are standing here, but instead of having to run the long road of all of it, if you were to just jump over and jump into over here, you would be your future. You wouldn't have had to go along that course. In a sense, that's what many of us have done, and we have been now awakened into a new existence of life, and that future is what we are pulling you to, but you are wanting that because you already know that you are the future. That is a lot.
Thank you for sharing that. Can you also, from your perspective, share what do you think is the next step of evolution for us as humanity?
Humanity at this time is in the expansion of the awakening within the soul of their collective agreement. You are all kind of pulling yourself to this, what we would call future selves. How that looks as a collective agreement is that you begin to recognize love as the primary existence of all creation, that there is no thing else other than love, and yet in love all things exist. This is the creation principle. So what we believe we would say to you on this level is that the wholeness, the holiness of your consciousness is trying to merge with the divine nature that is inherently life itself, life, breath itself, the creation principle of love. All that there really is love and light and breath, meaning sound. So the concentration of your focus in a lifetime by yourselves individually and collectively as you amplify to know that you are far more than your body and that you are eternal light. Literally, you are consciousness of light expansion, which is ultimately love and sound, and this all is the creation matrix of the principle of growth, of love, of God's direction upon itself. It is literally God reviewing God upon itself through all aspects of the potentiality of existence through what you call life expansion. That's what you are doing, and it is very, very beautiful and very, very big. To break that down, we are all in it. We could say all these dimensional frequencies are in it. We are all a part of this wholeness of life itself. In actuality, you are not any separate than your neighbor who lives across the hall from you, and you are not any separate from we, who you would say is light years into your future. There is only oneness here. That concept, that idea of oneness is where things begin to get a little tricky for people, And so you are here on this planet in this experience of the soul's determination of why you are here, to remember your divinity, to remember the truth of who you really are, to remember that there really is, no matter what this looks like, no matter how it shows up, no matter how many different costumes you put on and dress yourself up to be, whatever characters you begin to play, and once the ones you put down and you say, no, that's not who I am or what I am, you begin to recognize that you are all of it, that there is no separation, and that when you recognize there is no separation, your consciousness grows. And when your consciousness grows, you access points and the references to why it is you have come. Indeed, greetings again, dearest one. We are recognizing we are continuing. So we would say to you that the conversation as we left it was that there is a recognizing that is happening for humanity as you are expanding into the connection to the eternalness of your being. This is the questions, this is the seeking that people at a very large whole are doing, that there is something awakening within people individually, and that individual awakening, that individual expansion, that individual coming to consciousness as it is from the purity of the soul that is seeking to merge with the oneness of all creation of love, and to expand into the light, and to recognize all aspects of existence. That expansion principle is happening upon your planet, and energetically the beings who are on this planet at this time are a part of that collective whole, which is ultimately a oneness principle. So you are all part of this one wholeness that you are seeking, that you think is outside of you most of the time at first, and then you realize everything is really inside of you. And once you really get to that point of the collective expansion of the whole, and inside you, you start to work with and undo so much of the constructs, of the principles, of the diagrams, of the internal ways that you have existed, questioning every belief and opportunity you've ever experienced to open you, to allow it to open you. You begin to connect with a frequency of collective agreements that open you further. And how you rise with people in that kind of a way is to be willing to continue to grow. So people who say, well, I've gotten this and I'm at that level and here I am, and they stay there, can be and will find that they need to ask themselves to grow again and more. This place, this experience of the collective agreement of humanity is asking you all to grow. You are asking yourselves to take yourselves to a higher dimension of consciousness through being embodied, which is the most wonderful experience upon the planet. When you get to the experience of being in a physical experience, of being in a physical body, having the world around you, people around you, family members, job situations, all things that you do, be, and experience on the third dimensional reality, and you embody a consciousness that is the oneness, that is the remembrance. It's like a high frequency seeing all the time of that there is so much more here. You anchor in what some would call the presence of heaven or light or God, or however that becomes, source energy. You anchor that through, and the more you anchor that through as the oneness that you are, you reflect that out to other people, and they are allowed in remembering too that that's possible for them as well. And collectively you wake up, and as you set yourself free to wake yourself up into the highest degrees of understanding, which will take you not just to good and oh my God, this is so wonderful. It will take you to the places that meet the opposite of that. You will have to explore the parts of yourself that are difficult and challenging, and how it is that you hold petty agreements and all of these other things. And in that way, when you do that work and you continue to expand yourself and you take yourself into those levels, collectively you give each other permission to do so. You open yourselves up to the greatest frequencies possible, and this consciousness of humanity changes. And with that change, you will elevate into new ways of being and existing upon this planet. We see that.
Do you have a message for our audience here today in particular?
Oh, we would say we have so many, and we look forward to that opportunity and those opportunities in any way and always. And what we would say to you all at this moment is that there is such joy to be had and be experienced in the world of form and in the awakening process that you would call awakening, the ways in which you are all being called forth, and really you are being called forth to the greatest expansion in your experience of living life. This is what is the call. When you have, if you make your way here, if you are listening to these words, if you are inquiring on different levels of existence, and you are not, what you would say, trapped in those constructs that you have held yourself to, those identifiers, those belief systems, those constructs of identity or personality, you are questioning. As you question, you expand the potentiality for you to receive more, to be more, to live more, to let go of more, to open to more. And by doing this, you shift truly the vibration of your experience and the life that you are living, and that ripples out into the world of form experience on the third dimension, which you would call the many, well, you say how we said it earlier, almost 7-8 billion of you almost of experience, and you ripple that out into the energetic ethers of experience on the third dimensional realm, and that frequency is picked up by many, and this thus creates that experience of amplification for the new experience on your planet. Ultimately, that is what is happening here, and we would say to you, it is challenging. We are also recognizing the way that there is a lot that rises up in how should we say that word? The word, in conflict to that rising of the highest light. There will be met with much that is in resistance to that, both in a personal way and in the collective external that you see. So when what rises up is shining brightly, there is something to match it that seems to be the contrary opposite of that. This is for the greatest healing. This is to have these things become one. It is to help see that within all things there is its particular glorious, in some ways, opposite that can help amplify the highest light of existence. This is the call. When we say these things about your divine essence and the source of you, that you are eternal light, you are literally lightness of being, that you are a consciousness, that you are an expansion of existence, that we say is literally the breath of life. You are the creation principle of life. When we look upon you, knowing that is the truth, we know that is true, that we are too. So there is no separation happening here. So your joy that you begin to allow yourself to experience, which we know on some level is for many something that they have not even had a full touchstone to. Most of you don't know what true joy is. We would say, allow yourself to find places of joy. Allow yourself to find places and opportunities and openings of light and love and willingness. But also, most importantly, that if there is a resistance to that, look there too. Do not be afraid of that which comes up that seems to be in the opposite. Let yourself feel, experience, go through, let go, release, face those things that you think are the resistant factors within yourself or other people or the experience. Look upon them. See if you can look about the world without judgment. The least amount of judgment you can add to the pot helps heal the whole of the conditioning that has been implemented here upon this planet. Allow yourself the freedom of that. That is what we would say.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing.
Our joy, dearest one. We literally say to you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are overjoyed at this opportunity. We always are happy to speak with our human friends. We say to you, we love you all. We appreciate you all. We thank our beloved channel, the agreements that she has made for all these lifetimes to be here in this moment, in this timeline, to be here now. We say it is our utter joy. We look forward to more, and we bid you the most magical, loving, happy adieu.
That was very powerful.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I think the main message they shared that was beautiful is we are healing this planet by being non-judgmental.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably could do a number of talks on that. It would probably be very helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for taking this time to come here. I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
And to find out more about Grace, you can go to eternallifefoundation.com. That's your website. And please leave your comment. I look forward to your comments. And please remember to subscribe to this channel if you like this video. I'll see you soon. Thank you.